Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and an episode in which we are running through the USMNT's depth chart, position by position. Yes, we're deciding the best players in every single spot on the field, and we'll try to reach a consensus as well. Are you listening, Mauricio? Here we go. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, your friend, my friend, Taylor Rockwell. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. Excited to be here. Excited to get you to talk about the U.S. and the international break one more time.
Yeah, it's a thing that's happening all week long until it's not. Yay.
Yay. I can't wait. I do love international windows for making our recording schedule a little bit easier, even if it means recording on a Saturday night. It means not having to watch a Graham level of games on Sunday night to be ready for Monday morning. So, I welcome back club soccer, but I do enjoy the international break for what it is, even when it's not that much fun.
There you go. It's a break. It's there for a reason, yeah. Taylor. Graham Ruthven's here. Are you getting ready, Graham, to power up the 16 monitors in your control centre to watch all the domestic soccer this weekend?
The multi-view screen is powered up, Ryan Bailey, in anticipation of this weekend. I genuinely feel a little bit lost during international breaks. I quite like international breaks. It gives me a chance to watch teams that I don't normally get a chance to watch. But there have been times over the past week where I'll sit down with my dinner, turn on the TV, and there'll be no football on, and I feel a little bit lost.
Listen, we know
we've watched some stuff on TV this week.
That's what I was about to say. We know in our TSS private Slack chat that it's the international break when Graham talks about the TV shows he's been watching. He's been watching the paper, so we know that very much.
Surprisingly quite good. I was braced for it to be terrible, but I'm enjoying it.
There we go. Good stuff. Joe Lowry, hello. How are you?
I'm great. I too side with Taylor on the international break is kind of a nice change of pace end of the spectrum. I'm also excited for this episode because anytime we have to reach USMNT consensus, it's not always the easiest thing. I'm going to predict it right now. So we're going through position group by position group, like you said, Ryan. I'm going to predict that at I'll set the line at 2.5 of position groups that we're going to disagree on and not be able to reach consensus. So I don't know if it's the over, it's the under. It's somewhere in that 2 to 3 range. I think that's the sweet spot today.
Okay. And we are breaking out into 8 different positions, just to clarify there, Joe. So you're going well under half.
Yeah, well, it's still a pretty big chunk, all things considered.
Very good. Well, let's get to it. Just before we do, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is the very best way to support this endeavor. You get bonus episodes, bonus video, and perhaps best of all, access to our Discord server. You can talk all about the paper to our friend Graham Ruthven and much more on our Discord. Do join us there, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. And as a reminder, we're on the YouTubes. Come and see us. And Taylor's wearing a lovely shirt. You'll know all about it if you're watching us on YouTube right now. There we go. Join us. Smash like and subscribe. All right, let's get to the USMNT depth chart.
Keep it on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got to keep this very G on on YouTube, Taylor. Please,
sure?
Adhere to that one.
Oh, Patreon.
I've showed up shirtless once to record, and Graham was into it, and I'm not sure anybody else was here.
I do not remember that. Wow.
I think you hadn't logged in yet. I just
okay.
I liked occasionally if I think I'm going to be the first, which is very occasionally. I will try to do something ridiculous when I first log in.
I thought that was a fever dream I had. Turns out it wasn't. Okay.
Yeah, things can be two things.
All right, Taylor, let's start off with the goalkeeper position. So we're going to try and get 5 players for this depth chart in each position.
There's 5?
Starting with, well, obviously we got Klinsmann up top. Who else have we got?
Klinsmann, Zach Steffen.
Hey, guys, I have a thing.
Because
I just
he
remembered.
spits hot fire.
Yeah.
Taylor,
I do not have Zach Steffen top of my list. I do have him on my list. I have Matt Friis as the number 1. Feels like it is his job to lose at this point. I do have Matt Turner as number 2. The Matts, if you will. I wish we had 5 Matts. That would make this even more fun. But Matt Turner now getting minutes with the Revs. Still not getting looks with the U.S., but I do think he probably will in the October camp. And I imagine that's when Pochettino will really kind of pit them against each other and see who performs better, see who rises to the occasion. But right now for me it is Friis, Turner, Schulte, Steffen, and then 5 is question mark, where there are 14 different names that could go in.
What name are you putting in there?
Yes.
I don't really know. I think maybe somebody like Diego Koken, just to be like the young upstart and try something different, even though I don't think he is actually near the 5th spot on the depth chart.
Okay. Well, fifth spot on the goalkeeper depth chart is, of course, crucial to this endeavour going forward.
Taylor,
of course.
Run through your 5 there again, just from 1 to 5.
Friis, Turner, Schulte, Steffen, and then Koken. Because
retweet. That's
okay.
fine.
Boom. All right. Joe, do we have consensus straight off the bat?
Fight.
No, but it doesn't matter. My top three are Matt Freese, Matt Turner, Brad Stuver, who never gets mentioned in goalkeeper conversation. Patrick Schulte and Roman Celentano. So no Zach Steffen in my top five. Stuver has literally been a plus shot stopper in every single season since Austin FC have existed. He's been their number one from day one. He has been an excellent MLS goalkeeper every season. Back when Austin first started, by the way, they were a much more build-up heavy team than they are today, and that involved a lot of Brad Stuver playing out from the back, and he looked completely competent at that. I don't know that it's going to be a plus sort of strength, but it's not for any of these guys. Even Patrick Schulte, it's not, right? Even when he plays in that system, I think Brad Stuver, if you're looking for another name to try, should have been tried way before someone like Jonathan Klinsmann. Should have been tried way before someone even like Roman Celentano or Schulte. His body of work is bigger. He can bring a veteran voice to a locker room even though he doesn't have international experience. I put this on Blue Sky the other day. I would legitimately call Brad Stuver up. If you're going to cycle through options to compete with Matt Freese, and I'm not super bothered ultimately at the end of the day as to whether it's Stuver or Freese or Turner at the moment. I don't think it's like choosing between one shiny great apple and two rotten ones. I think they're all just kind of okay looking apples. They're all gala apples. They're not pink ladies, all right?
Retweet.
Yeah, thank you for that, Taylor. I knew I'd get somebody with that. Audience of one. Ryan looked at me confused because they don't serve that at Chili's. My mistake. I would.
They do. They're just deep fried and bad.
And we don't have fruit in Scotland. So.
That too.
And if we liked them, they'd probably take them off the Chili's menu. I'm looking at you, Street. Go on. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I forgot that was still an open wound. Stuver. I would call Stuver in October.
Joe, question then. When you're approaching this depth chart, is this a Joe Lowry depth chart? Is this a Joe Lowry / Mauricio Pochettino? Like, what is the percentage breakdown, do you think?
This is a Joe Lowry depth chart. I think ultimately, and we kind of talked about this earlier in the week, I would be a little surprised if Poch's roster doesn't kind of sort of look like this at the end of the day. He's done a lot of work to cycle through a lot of players, and I kind of have the feeling that outside of a couple of the Gold Cup guys, it's going to be a lot of the names that we've known before, and that this exercise is kind of going to have been for naught, at least as it relates to the roster. Maybe it wasn't for naught in terms of the culture and establishing his dominance in the locker room and all these things. But yeah, I think it's going to look close to this, even though I don't know if Brad Stuver is actually in the cards.
Yeah, but it gives you the opportunity to then, when all of our goalkeepers don't perform well at the World Cup, say Brad Stuver should have been there. Yeah. I told you then.
100%. Savvy work on my part.
Very
savvy. The high ground.
Joe, would you like to kick us off with your centre-back depth, please?
I would love to. And we've done just combining the centre-backs into one spot. Obviously, we know, especially now with the back three, there are 3 or 2 centre-back spots that are going to be on the field. But I think we would all probably be surprised if there were more than 5 centre-backs at the World Cup. So I think we're still kind of covering our bases here by combining it all into one. My top 5. Chris Richards is the one that is indisputable. I don't think there's a single USMNT fan out there that would argue with this. The rest of my list gets real murky real fast. I've gone for Mark McKenzie as a big winner from this past window by not being in camp. Mark McKenzie I've got in the 2nd spot. I've got Jackson Reagan in my 3rd spot for the Seattle Sounders. I've got Tim Ream in my 4th spot, and I've got Walker Zimmerman in my 5th spot. So let me explain this very briefly. I think we continue to see that Tim Ream is not that guy, right? I mean, I think we saw it defensively in both of these games. We see it especially in the South Korea game where he really struggled to keep up with the pace of play. Now, Mark McKenzie and Jackson Reagan are not the fleetest of foot either, but they're fleeter of foot than Tim Ream at this stage. And both of those players bring some plus passing on the ball. Reagan, I think maybe a bit more than McKenzie, and Ream more than both of them. But I think the U.S. are getting dangerously close to needing to find someone else in that spot, or else they're risking a pure defensive liability. So that's why I've got McKenzie playing in Liga, starting games there, Reagan starting for one of the best teams in Major League Soccer. We know Poch loves that, so I don't think it's totally out of the realm of possibility, even if it's not all that likely, because Pochettino talked about how he's maybe not going to lean as heavy on MLS in October and November because of the playoffs, so that ship may have sailed, it may not have sailed. And then Zimmerman made my 5 because of the back 3, to be honest. If you're looking for a central center back who can be aerially dominant, even against higher level attackers than the U.S. saw coming at them against Japan, Zimmerman is probably that guy in this pool, and he's a set-piece threat. And if we get someone other than Christian Pulisic on set pieces, that has real value as well. So that's why he rounds out my top 5.
Graham's nodding.
On Zimmerman, yeah, because I thought I was going to be alone in having him in my top 5. I think Zimmerman gives you that aerial ability, and also, like, hope it doesn't come to this, but an emergency option if you need a goal in the last few minutes for someone to throw on and get up there and be the big man to lump it forward to. So he was in my 5.
And who else is, Graham?
So Richards, number 1 by far and away. a little bit shaky against Japan, but still the dominant centre back. Tim Ream is my number 2. I get the concerns. I feel like I have become, when Ream was originally coming into this team for the last World Cup, I felt like I was the voice of doom on Tim Ream, and now I feel like I'm sort of advocating for him. I just look at the way that he helps the US get out in terms of like his distribution. And I know Mark McKenzie is playing, I think he's playing left side of a back three actually in League One as well. So there's some overlap there in terms of the position, but I just don't feel as confident about his distribution. And I just think once Jedi is back, he will help provide some cover in that area. I was looking at his numbers for Fulham because Calvin Bassey, who plays left centre-back for Fulham, is a little bit volatile and quite adventurous, and so it feels like Jedi has to cover for him a lot, and so he might do the same thing for Ream. So anyway, Ream is my number 2. See the next 3, it could be any order, it could be anyone. I've gone CCV just because I feel like I need to continue the bit at this point. Then number 4, I've gone Mark McKenzie. He could have been 3, he could have been number 5. Number 5, Zimmerman. After my top 2, actually after top 1, it's a bit of a blob. You could convince me on anyone, frankly.
All right. Will Taylor convince you on anyone?
I have roughly the same as Graham. And then I was trying to break them apart in my list just to kind of see where bases were covered. So left center back, right center back. I have same as you all. I have Richards. Same as Graham. I have Ream as number 2, at least for now. But I think that's what he's proven himself to be for Mauricio Pochettino. I did not have CCV on my list. I apologize, Graham. I did have Mark McKenzie next, even if I remain very unconvinced by him. It's a conversation Joe and I have had several different times. I don't know if he is the guy for me. I don't know if he makes me feel better. But I don't know if Miles Robinson does that. I don't think Tristan Blackman does that. Noah Banks might do that, but we didn't see him at all in this window. So I have Richards, Ream, McKenzie, Zimmerman, and then Joe Scally as one of my center back options because I still think he could do a couple different things for the U.S., specifically 2 different things for the U.S.
I totally agree, Taylor, but I've got him in a future category coming up. So
The strikers category. Got it.
Is it the next?
Him and Zim.
Yeah.
Is it the next category by any chance, Graham?
It is indeed. Yeah, I kind of spoiled that one slightly.
Go on then. Let's talk about the right backs. I'm assuming we've got Dest and Scally. Maybe is that top 2 for you? What do you think?
Yeah, it's top 2 for me. Dest clearly number 1. Joe Scally. Look, I get it. Incredibly limited, but has a bit of versatility. Can play in that back 3, which now seems to be on the table for this team. And
one day he will touch the ball within 20 yards of goal. One day, maybe, possibly. We'll see.
Not before the World Cup, I don't think. But there are roles that I think Scally can play where I don't really need him to do that sort of thing, right? Maybe in a back 4 where we need a bit of an outlet. He's limited, certainly, but I still think he does what he does relatively well. My number 3 is Richie Ledesma. Until someone tells me that I can't pick him, he's going to be in here. Not sure what his status is right now with Mexico, but filled in well for Dest at a title-winning team last season and is closer, in my impression anyway, is he's closer to Dest in profile than Joe Scally, so he's in my list. Number 4, Alex Freeman. Has clear potential, feels like he'll be in Europe by the World Cup, so hopefully he'll have progressed. Given how much he's progressed in the last year anyway, or in 2025 anyway, it feels like he'll continue to do that. Struggled with number 5. Nathan Harriel? There basically wasn't anyone left by the time I got to 5, so I'm interested to see where you
Put
guys
that
land.
question mark behind the name, and let's get him on that list. I did not have Nathan Harriel. I had a very similar list to Graham, and I think the way I approach this is that with a depth chart, you can have multiple people in multiple spots because they can provide depth but also be a starting option depending on how you're playing and what you need. I tried to kind of combine, I think for this grouping, it's like 70% what Pochettino seems to want. Maybe 60% Pochettino, 40% me. But I had as Dest and Freeman, even if I was very much not convinced by Freeman in either of these 2 recent friendlies. I still think that seems to be one of Poch's Gold Cup guys that he's gonna stick with. And to Graham's point, maybe there's further development. So Dest, Freeman, and then Musa I have as a right back option because I'm not sure where else he fits. He has played on the right side, mostly as a right winger. But if you're a Pochettino trying to get some level of attacking creativity or some level of attacking flair into your fullback position, if it's not going to be Dest or if it's not going to be Freeman, I could see Yunus Musa there. Then I had it as Joe Scally as my fourth and Richie Ledesma as my fifth, mostly because Scally and Ledesma have not been called in, haven't gotten any looks. So it's hard for me to put them much higher than that, but I think they probably should because Scally is a regular starter in the Bundesliga and does the defensive side of things well enough. And Richie Ledesma, to Graham's point, it just continues to confuse me how, like, Dest is injured. We have no one who can play in that position except for the guy who plays there when Dest is injured at club level. The only thing I can figure is that there is still the Mexico aspect of things. He I believe has the passport now. Still hasn't been called up by Mexico, but we don't really know where he wants to play for national team level at present. So maybe that's why Ledesma isn't there, but I still have him on my list.
Surely there are other things we can fathom with Pochettino as to why he would not call in Richie Ledesma. Like, Pochettino's call-ups have been completely irrational at times anyway. Like, it feels like that one kind of fits into the bucket of, like... it's
Poch,
bro.
It's a good point, Joe. Sorry for interrupting, but you're totally right. And there are those moments where Poch has a little bit of that proper football man about him. Like, I could see Poch being like, he's wearing gloves. I don't like that. And I could see Poch being like, his name should be Richard. He goes by Richie. I don't like it. Like I don't know. There's weird peculiarities to Pochettino sometimes.
He was on the Gold Cup provisional roster,
yes,
right?
He was. The
and
old
not
60
on
man.
Yeah.
The old 60 man.
So how did he not? How did he not get caught?
Well,
I just don't understand.
Hold on, let's be clear. Graham, earlier you said he was a good fill-in for a title-winning side. That title-winning side was in the Netherlands, and he was a backup. So it's not like his body of work is not so overwhelming. He's on the
but
depth
Des
chart.
was out for just such a huge chunk of the season.
I'm just
he
saying,
still played
PSV
2,000 minutes.
PSV walked their way to being a top 2 team in the Eredivisie last year, as they do every season, right? I mean, it's like it's not as if his body of work is indisputable. I'm going to go back to Freeman for just a second. Ledesma is on my list, by the way. It's Dest, Freeman, Scally, Ledesma, and then I gave up, so I don't have a fifth one. Freeman, I think we didn't really talk about him much in the Japan review. I think he had moments that have stood out in your mind, Taylor, and Graham, in your mind as well, to the point where they've overwhelmed, negative moments, to the point where they've overwhelmed the kind of like large amount of positive things he did in that game. So he's got that cross in the 2nd minute that's cut out, and then the 6th minute he overhits that ball to Zendejas, which I'm guessing stuck out to everybody. I think you mentioned that moment, Taylor, on the review show when Zendejas kind of turns around after and cheers him on a little bit. It's a wildly overhit ball from Freeman, very much so. Like, he's settling into that game, and it took him a little bit of time. 21st minute, really nice ball to Balogun to release him in behind after some really good build-up play on that side. 48th minute, lovely slipped ball to Balogun, and then a great delivery after receiving the ball to progress play. I think that's from Pulisic, when Pulisic cuts inside, feeds Freeman, Freeman drives forward. It's really nice stuff. 80th minute, great 1v1 defending on Mitoma, a good Premier League wide attacking player. Freeman, I thought, had a pretty nice list of really good things in that Japan game.
I thought it was fine, honestly, in the Japan game. And he has my 4 in my depth chart. And if we're taking Ledesma out, who seems to not be on the radar really, other than on provisional squads, he's my 3 effectively. So I am still high on Alex Freeman. I just think there's some rounding out to do in his game.
There very much is, and maybe it comes down to personal preference between Freeman and his approach to the right back spot, and Scally in terms of who the second right back that's actually going to be on that World Cup roster is. I've got Freeman. I wouldn't be crying tears if it is Joe Scally. Taylor, just maybe one thing to correct, or maybe you didn't mean it this way. We have seen Scally under Pochettino multiple times. We saw him back in March most recently. Before that, we saw him last year as well. So we have seen him, but he was part of that ban for the summer.
Yeah, not since March, right?
March was the last time.
He got ball squadded.
But we have seen him, which is just my point.
Thanks.
But that's my list of 4. Dest, Freeman, Scally, and Ledesma.
I think that is a good factual clarification. And I think you also both understood the spirit of my comment, which is no Gold Cup inclusion at a time when it's a weakened squad. When Ledesma isn't there, it feels like he could have been a reliable veteran performer. So it feels like he is very much on the outs.
All right. Very good. 3 categories down so far. No consensus yet. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back and see if we get some. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our USMNT depth chart analysis. We go now to left back. Graham, would you like to kick us off with your 5?
I will, yes. So number 1, Max Arston. Just kidding. Number 1, Jedi. I still remember how badly the US missed him in March, so there's a big gap below Jedi to my next option, which is Max Arston. Clearly has his weaknesses, also has his qualities. Can be used as a wing back. This is probably recency bias, but the back 3 is in my mind now, and if it's a back 3, then he plays as a left wing back. Number 3, this might be a bit of a CCV pick for me. I'm sticking with John Tolkien. I still hold some stock. He was frankly bad at the Gold Cup. He was a lot worse than I expected him to be. But generally speaking, I think he is still a reasonable option for the US at left back. Previously, I've thought he's better on the ball than many give him credit for. That argument kind of fell to pieces during the Gold Cup, but he had a weird tournament at the Gold Cup. I don't think that was a fair reflection of how good he is. At number 4, I've gone Caleb Wiley, and number 5, DeJuan Jones, who I thought was actually decent in the one game he played in the January camp at left back. But I'm hopeful we won't need to get down to the number 5 pick for the World Cup.
All right. Taylor, does that align with your picks?
Nope. I went Jedi, Arfston, and then Serginho Dest as my, who's maybe actually the backup left back. I'm not entirely sure, but we did see him play left back or left wing back against Japan. Then the obvious left back option, Tim Ream, who I think would be a choice there if everybody else was hurt. You'd go Tim Ream as left back and then maybe have
Charlotte's
a more
finest
attacking
left back.
right
Go on.
Yes, Graham?
So hold on, just to clarify on the rules here. So you had Dest in your right back category. Oh right, okay. I didn't realize we were
And
going to
Scally
do that.
in a few categories too, right?
Scally in 2 categories and Tim Ream in 2 categories now.
Dest is my backup left back, but I didn't realise we were able to do that. So
Yeah, man,
Max
that's how I'm
Arfston,
doing
you've
it.
won it at this.
It makes the pool smaller technically for Taylor, I guess.
Yeah.
A little bit. But I mean, I think it's also, for me at least, some of this is like Christopher Lund has played under Pochettino for the U.S. He played a couple games. I don't really think he's in consideration. I don't feel like he is a realistic choice, but I have him on that list if you want to go further down. But in terms of the players that I think Pochettino would go with if push came to shove, for me it's Robinson, Arfston, Dest, then Ream as a left back, and then I could argue for Lund, I could argue for Tolkien, maybe it's DeJuan Jones, but I think in the end I'll go Tolkien because why not? And why not make Graham happy?
I like it. Taylor, well done. Yeah, my group closely resembles Graham's. I have Jedi, Arfston, Tolkien, Wiley as my top 4, and I didn't put a 5th one in. If you're going to do that, I toss Dest in somewhere in that top, underneath Jedi, either above or below Arfston. Arfston's an interesting player because we talked about him as being this defensive liability, which I didn't think he really was, even in that back 4 against South Korea. Now, caveat is that South Korea built down the other side, so Arfston had very little work to do. But in key moments, he did come in and help out Tim Ream. And defensively, I thought he was just fine against Japan. That was a nice change from what we'd seen of him previously, where he had been a defensive liability. But the thing that we've been waiting for with Arfston is, okay, if you're going to be bad defensively, you've got to go and impact the game in the attack. And it did seem like the back 3 liberated him to go and do more of that. Obviously, he has the assist. That's what sticks out. He had a step over off of a ball from Pulisic where he cuts inside on his right foot and shoots at the goalkeeper. It's right at the goalkeeper in that game. But he had a couple of nice attacking involvements in that match that we just haven't seen from Arfston. And you have to be doing that stuff. You have to. If you're going to be a middling to poor defensive player, which on balance is what he's been so far. So I do have Arfston as my number 2, but I still not all the way there. I need to see more of him going and impacting the game. It doesn't have to be an assist, right? Assists are a weird stat. I'm not expecting him to do that in every single game, but he has to be impacting matches in the final third, or has to continue the trend of him being a quite resolute defender, which I'm not that optimistic is going to happen. But Arfston, despite some of that confusion, because there are no other good options besides Jedi Robinson, he still makes the cut for me in the 2nd spot.
Okay. Do we need to make any delineation between wing-backs and full-backs at all? Or is it the same groups pretty much exclusively?
For the purposes of this squad, I think they're probably the same, maybe with the exception of Weah, who could fit in as a wing-back, and I've got him higher up the pitch. But other than that, the overlap between Arfston and even Jedi, who can play as a wing-back, or Alex Freeman or Dest, it's basically they're playing the same position.
Scally's the only one who would probably be dropped
Scally's
from this spot. Weah would join. Scally would move into the wide center back spot probably, or would move from his bed to his couch in Germany somewhere, watching all these games happen.
Yeah, if Taylor has
Next to
anything to
Gio.
do with it, yeah.
At the Gladbach training ground.
Very good. All right, the next categories are defensive midfield and central midfield. There might be a bit of a bleed between these two. Taylor, should we start with defensive midfield?
I would love to, Ryan. Would that make you happy?
Yes.
Who did you have as
very
your
much
defensive
about
midfielders?
making people
Let's
happy
get
today.
Ryan's list, shall we?
Yes.
Declan Rice. And
Yeah.
Tyler Adams, Johnny Cardoso, Christian Roldan, and then it's Tyler Adams, then a line, then Johnny and maybe Christian Roldan, and then another line, and then Aiden Morris, James Sands, Benjamin Kromaski, some combination there of those three. I'm not really sure who it would be. It feels, again, like a group where there are maybe the 2 or 3 players that Pochettino likes, prefers, wants to utilize, has seen enough of, and then there's some options that he either hasn't seen or hasn't been impressed by. Joe, has he had Aiden Morris in camp? He has, right?
Yes. Yep. Back in his very first camp, he started a game, Aiden Morris. Maybe multiple.
And then Sands has not, but that's largely due to injury.
As far as I can recall, that's right.
Okay. So yeah, that's about how I have it, and I think Sands would have been much more prominent in this conversation if he hadn't had the injury that he had last year with Sampoli. Now he's back. I feel like he should be in that conversation again. So I might even put him ahead of Aiden Morris now that I say that. So Adams, Johnny, Roldan, Sands, Morris.
Very good. Joe, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's very similar to the list I have. In fact, I think it's 5 for 5 in terms of the names. I went Adams top, although I think we talked about it quite a bit in this window. Wasn't very good in these games. Certainly wasn't very good against South Korea. Something to watch.
Joe, like we talked about it, especially after the Korea game. Like, it is very worrying.
Yeah,
in 2 games, he looked like overly aggressive in the wrong moments. He looked a little bit confused as to when he was supposed to mark somebody versus step to somebody versus mark space. We saw him be a little bit slow on the ball at times.
Yeah.
Seeing Adams kind of have 2 bad performances in a row feels very strange to me and does not inspire confidence.
Especially when it's contrasted with his performances for Bournemouth, which we've spoken about on the Weekend Review the last few weeks. He's been excellent to start the season for Bournemouth. So that is peculiar. My main issue with Adams in the Japan game in particular was the number of times he killed momentum in midfield. And there was a couple of times, actually, one in particular where Pulisic... he didn't quite throw his hands up, but you could see like visible frustration. He kind of like punched a pass into Adams and then made the run beyond him and was looking for the ball back, and Adams went backwards, and like Pulisic, you could tell from his shoulders and his body language was not happy. So I agree, Tyler Adams didn't have a great window. He's still my number 1. Johnny Cardoso's my number 2, which, if we're going on the basis of USMNT performances so far, I don't even know if he makes my top 5. But this is a guy who's starting for Atletico Madrid. I've watched enough of him in La Liga. Similar to Joe Scally, he's limited if you want him to be like an all-round player in his position. But when you ask him, when you simplify his role, he's very good at that role, and that's why Atleti have signed him. So he's my number 2 because I still hold hope that the US are going to find a role for him that works. Number 3, Roldan. Number 4, Morris. Number 5, James Sands. So this might be the closest to consensus. I think Joe maybe has a slightly different order, but in terms
same
of names,
5. Same 5. Go us. The only order I flipped there from you, Graham, is I had Roldan above Cardoso, which I don't feel great about it.
Correct.
Like,
yeah.
I think I've become sort of a Roldan apologist, like relative to, I guess, a lot of people, where I've watched him a ton this year for Seattle, where he's had the best season of his career. He was useful, if not spotless. He wasn't spotless in both of these games that he played in this window, but was a much, much better ball progressor than Sebastian Berhalter when he comes into that double pivot, and just looked like a useful national team player. And to be honest, I've never once thought that about Johnny Cardoso when he's playing for the U.S. And Graham, you got to that point. Roldan's body of work is already more impressive to me than Cardoso's at international level, which I know does not mean everything, and I still don't feel great about my order of operations here, but I do have Roldan, and then I have the rest of the bunch that you mentioned. Adams first, Roldan second, and then the trio.
All right, very good. Joe, would you like to take us into your central midfield group, please?
I would, and there's a lot of options for these spots, so I'm really curious to hear where we all land. Weston McKennie's still top for me. I have a hard time imagining a world where he doesn't come back in October, but I am ready for anything. So we'll see what happens on that front. But Weston McKennie, I have number 1. I have Yunus Musa still number 2. I'm still a Yunus Musa believer, man. I know that he's lost a lot of people along the way. I'm very excited to see what he looks like with Atalanta, to see him have a chance, hopefully, to play more often in central midfield and to impact games in that area. I think he is still very, very talented, and I've not totally given up on the MMA midfield reprising itself in big games of the World Cup. So Yunus Musa is my second option. I would absolutely call him into the next roster. Tanner Tessman is my third option, starting games for Lyon. Number 4, I have Jack McGlynn. And one of the things we didn't talk about very much from this window, 5 is Berhalter, by the way. Number 4, Jack McGlynn. Well, we didn't talk much about his cameo off the bench against Japan. That, to me, was the test case for, can we bring Jack McGlynn off the bench in a World Cup game when we are looking for something to happen, right? When we're looking for the game state to change in one way or another. We know Jack McGlynn has his deficiencies, but he comes off the bench against Japan, pings a lovely set piece into Chris Richards, huge chance created there, and then has 2 delightful shots that are nearly 2 goals, one of which the goalkeeper makes a great save, and the other hits off the woodwork. We did mention that one. McGlynn was excellent in that game. Excellent. Like, he nearly changed the game 3 different times. To me, I know we're not talking about a roster. We're not actually fully building a roster here. I did kind of bold the names that I think are going to be on my World Cup roster if we do that show at some point. McGlynn's on that list. Like, he's the last midfielder on that list behind McKennie, Musa, and Tessman. But those are the 4 guys I would bring to the World Cup from this position group. McGlynn, because he is so good, so much of an outlier at his specific thing, he would be on my World Cup roster.
Joe, follow-up question. If you were doing this position group, but specifically what you think Pochettino's rankings would be, what would it be then?
I think we would still see McKennie in that group. I think we would see McGlynn in that group. I think we would probably see Berhalter in that group. Yep. And then can I hedge and say he picks one of Musa and Tessman? Like Berhalter feels like a guy that is one of his guys at this stage. And I don't think you should be playing minutes. Would I be offended if he's on a World Cup roster? No, it's not. There's not that much difference between these guys. And then, I'm just going to hedge between Musa and Tessman and figure he's going to take 4, and it's going to be one of those 2 guys.
I think that's really revealing, personally, because if I did my list based on what I think his rankings would be, Pochettino, it's, McKennie, Berhalter, McGlynn, Luca de la Torre, then Yudis Musa, then Tanner Tessman. And I don't love that order. I don't think that should be the order. I think Musa should be higher. I think Tessman should probably be a little bit higher. And I think it's notable to me, Joe, that a lot of your position groups have players either on them to begin with or ranked higher than probably where Pochettino has them, which I think speaks to maybe the concern/dissatisfaction with some of his selections. And I contrast it with Berhalter, with the Berhalter USMNT. I think we would have like some quibbles, broadly speaking, with some of his selections, but generally I feel like if we did the like 70% Berhalter roster, 30% our own, we could kind of nail his rosters pretty consistently, which might have been its own issue with calling in the same players over and over again. But I still think, like, I'm spotlighting yours, Joe, but I think it's the same for me and Graham. I think it shows that there is some confusion, concern about his selections and how we haven't had the consistency to really feel like we know this guy's in there even if he's not in there.
Yeah,
like
agreed.
right now. Yeah,
totally agree. Yeah, I think it's a really good point, Taylor. And you want some balance. Like if Pochettino's coming in, I think it would have maybe been a bit foolish for him to just stick with the player pool he inherited, right? Just to keep calling in the same rosters. And that's kind of what he was doing back in October and November and even March. And then the March window happens, and Poch talked about this earlier in the week. Like, they realized we got to change some stuff. And so they've started mining the player pool. I don't have an issue with that in theory. My issue is, like, with some of the choices he's made en route to mining the player pool. Like, we've probably seen a little more of Sebastian Berhalter than we needed to. You know what I mean? Like, those kinds of things pop up for me. The concept I don't have a problem with. It's just the execution in certain spots that I think people are seeing from the roster I picked, as you pointed out, Taylor. Maybe I would make different decisions. But again, I say this all the time. Poch will forget more about soccer than I'll ever know, so I'll just sit back with my cup of lemonade and enjoy.
Lemonade. Nice choice. Very good.
Thanks. Yeah, I thought so.
Graham, your 5?
Yeah, I'm just realising that 3 of my 5 weren't called up to this, amid that discussion there between Joe and Taylor. 3 of my 5 were not called up to this window and could have been, are fit, and in a couple cases anyway, are playing. Like Tanner Tessman. Did we get anything from, obviously Weston maybe like dominated the headlines with his omission. Why was Tessman not in? There was no reason given.
Why not, Graham? Why not?
By all accounts, Tanner Tessman, I think, has started all 3 games for Lyon in Ligue 1 and has played really well. I found a L'Equipe article saying that he'd been one of their best players to start the season, so that's very confusing. But anyway, I've gone Weston number 1. I agree with Joe. Just kind of difficult to imagine the midfield pool without him being there, despite the fact, as I've said on this show before, I find him slightly confusing in terms of his skill set, but he can still affect games at the top level. So he's my number 1. Musa number 2. Kind of going on talent here over anything he's done recently. I'm hoping that move to Atalanta sparks something. Number 3, Jack McGlynn. I agree with everything Joe said. Like, he is a player who I maybe wouldn't want starting games because of his, he doesn't have the rounded profile you'd want for a central midfielder, particularly if it's like a double pivot. But as someone who you can bring on for set pieces and long range shooting,
he's the Ajiman of the midfield group, Graham.
Yeah.
Like, by your reasoning, he's the Ajiman of the midfield group.
Totally, and I love what you said about, like, if you're building a roster, you need a couple of players Ryan's loving this. A couple of players who can give you something different. So McGlynn's one of those. I've got 4 Tanner Tessman and 5 Sebastian Berhalter.
All right, very good. Taylor, do we have consensus?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Nice. Wow, there we go. Good stuff. All right, let's take one more quick break. When we come back, it's the sexiest of the player positions. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our USMNT depth chart analysis. We go now to Taylor Rockwell, who's going to tell us about the attacking midfield and wide attacking players and where we put the plethora of options in the depth chart.
Yeah. It's an interesting group and an interesting way we've chosen to categorize this, because I do think there can be like some fluidity. Joe's talked about this, where he would prefer, if you have Pulisic and Diego Luna, to have Pulisic more central and Luna out on the left. But I also think if it is going to be a back three that Graham mentioned, if it's like that 3-4-2-1, then you can have some of the wide attackers maybe moving more centrally. And so I get why we've grouped them all together, but I also think it gives us a lot of potential talent to work through. Potential talent is the best way I'm putting that one. If we're going with the 5 still, I think it's Pulisic, I think it's Tillman, I think it's Weah, and I think it's Luna as my kind of 4 that are like the locks. And then from there are many different potentials. Like on my depth chart, I had Jack McGlynn as a potential more attack-minded midfielder. But I think I'm going to go with what Pochettino seems to want more than my own selection. So I'm throwing Zendejas in there based on what we saw from this camp.
In order as well. That's my exact 5.
There you go.
All right, Joe. It's up to you to be on Team Correct listing or Team Joe's listing.
Team Joe's listing. We're
There
close.
it
We're
is.
close. We're not quite there. I have Pulisic number 1, Weah still number 2, although I'm not exactly sure where he stands for Poch after this window, to be totally honest with you. Tillman number 3, I have Luna number 4, might be a little high. Not been all that impressed with Diego Luna on balance across the summer and
It's
this
a
window.
quiet concern. It's a quiet concern.
Yeah. I'm not freaked out about it because I never had Diego Luna as like a World Cup difference maker. Really, I don't think we've seen that player emerge from him yet at any
Well, hang
level.
on.
But
Is that the tune changing? I feel like a few months ago we did have that, didn't we?
well, we might have had it, but whether I had it or not is a different story. I think I mentioned many times throughout the Gold Cup that I thought Luna was a bit quiet, all things considered.
I know that we've all collectively chosen to forget that Louis C.K. exists, but he has. Did you all watch the Louis C.K. show? Louis. Yeah. So there's like an arc in that one. This is going to be relevant, I promise. There's an arc in that show when he is being like tested to be, I think, the replacement for Letterman, and he's like really bad at it to start. And the network head, who I think is Gary Marshall, has him do all this like practice and get ready for it. And he finally gets really good at it, such that the network head watches it and then says like, now we've got options. And it turns out he's just being used for leverage. But there's that moment of like, I've got an option here. And that's to me what Luna was. It was sort of a like, at a time when we did not have much talent and much attacking creativity, here's the guy who came in and gave us options. He gave us different looks. He gave us excitement and enthusiasm. And so I think that's where we had a lot of hype for Diego Luna. But I also don't think, to Joe's point, I was ever looking at him as like, he's going to be the guy who comes in and elevates this team and makes them perform at a World Cup. I think he's a guy who can be a difference maker, who can add different looks to the U.S. when they want to attack, especially if they're attacking a team that's going to be bunkered or a bit more like just straight up defensive. But I still don't think of him as like that top tier. For me, it's probably Pulisic, Tillman, Weah, then a break, then Luna, but then a break after Luna.
Yeah. I think Luna, sorry, Graham, I think Luna is a guy who still has the potential to be a good, useful player for the U.S. at the World Cup. I'm not trying to minimize that, but if we're talking about Luna as a game-changing player, I'm still just not there on it as at the international level. I have him on my roster. Like if I'm building a World Cup roster, he's there today. So I'm not like totally. Oh, nice work on my part. Just totally kicked my camera off my thing. I didn't even know I could do that.
That's
But while
how
you did
much
that-
he hates Diego Luna.
I think that was an intentional thing, because I think it brought attention to the thing that I always forget to check until the very end of the show, which is that Joe today is Christian Joldan. And that is lovely work by you,
Thank
Joe.
you. Thanks very much. I'll move on from Luna just to finish my list. I have Haji Wright over Zendejas on my list. I have him over Brian Gutierrez. I have him over Gio Reyna. Again, different players. We did bunch these guys all together because if you're playing in the half spaces, they are very, very similar roles. And if you're playing with a number 10, we've seen Tillman, Luna, Pulisic in that role. Like there's just a lot of overlap here. Tim Weah will not be a number 10. Haji Wright will not be a number 10. But there's a lot of fluidity in the attack that it seems like if you're picking this roster and you're Pochettino, yes, you are going to break it into subcategories, but you're also going to look at these guys like roughly in a similar player pool. My take after the rewatch of the Japan game is that Zendejas had a big moment, and he wasn't amazing other than that. I think he was fine. He wasn't a liability on the field, and the goal was
high
great.
five,
He does
Joe.
that every game. Let's see that. But I didn't think he wowed me, truly. It seemed like he wowed Pochettino, and I'm fine if he's on a World Cup roster. But I went with Haji Wright in part because I think he gives you some depth in other places if you are thinking about this in a more rostery kind of way. But Wright is also just a different profile. And if you go with Zendejas, Luna, Tillman, Pulisic, that's a whole lot of pure half-space guys and not a lot of players that if you do need to change something up can shift themselves and start a little wider and move inside. So I went with Haji to finish out my 5 with honorable mentions to Zendejas, to Brian Gutierrez, and to the Husk of Gio Reyna.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, Gio Reyna not on anyone's list.
He's on my
sad.
if I was just going straight cam players, I had it as Tillman, Luna, Pulisic, McGlynn, Reyna.
There we go.
There he is.
Can
Good
I
making
just
appearance.
very quickly go back to Diego Luna and say I definitely got a little bit carried away. Yeah, Ryan, I think you're. I think you might be talking about. I changed my tune a little bit. I think
Fine.
was it the March window where he obviously in the January camp he gets called in, but then March window he was one of the few players who was decent. I think. I think if you'd asked me after
against
March,
Canada.
yeah, I think after March I might even have had him as high as like 2. I would have had him ahead of Tillman certainly. So changed my tune a little bit, but I still think he's going to be part of this roster. For
And Luna was really good off the bench against Japan. Like he plays that lovely one-touch ball to Damian Downs. If you guys remember that, it's like very near the end of the game. And Luna just has that ability to break a game open. It's just the consistency that still sort of lacks with him. I thought he was a big part of the U.S.'s pressing struggles as well against South Korea. So it's a give and take with Luna right now where you're still waiting for him to become something closer to the finished product. So again, I would have him in these rosters. I'm totally fine if he sees minutes at the World Cup. It's just that I do think he is still under Tillman, even though I've got my issues with Tillman as well. And I think he's got some growing to do still.
Okay, there we go. I'm sure Diego Luna definitely appreciates the direct comparison with Louis C.K., as we all would at this point anyway.
When did he score the brace, Luna?
Gold Cup semi-final, Guatemala.
Okay. Thank you.
Wow.
Boom.
That was impressive recall. Very good. Graham, it therefore befalls you to give your 5 for our final category, the striker category. Is it going to be Balogun up top for you? Number 1 spot? Is recency bias going to dictate that or not?
No, hold on. It's not,
I think it's correctness bias. Yeah.
It's not recency bias. So I went through and looked at Transfer Market to just remind myself of the games he'd played. Balogun. Yeah, well done. You got me.
You got him.
Balogun comes and his first ever window with the U.S. is Nations League back in 2023. That's the summer of 2023. Anonymous USMNT social media accounts won the war. We got him, folks. And Balogun comes in, and he's pretty quiet against Mexico because the U.S. never passed him the ball. And then he scores against Canada. He scores multiple goals of the Copa America. Had, I believe, an assist against Germany. Take that for what it's worth. Back in that friendly, I think my timeline's a little out of order now. Scores against Ghana. Like across years and across windows and across teams, both the U.S. men's national team and his club team, Balogun has been quite productive when he's been on the field. So it's not just this past window. I hate that I just played right into Ryan's hands. But I just want to make the case to the listener as well. We have had a lot of evidence, even though it's been spaced out a little bit, that Balogun can be a really useful player for the U.S., and this past window was just the latest in that string of evidences. Anyway, Graham, sorry, I completely derailed that. Go ahead.
No, I would have had Balogun, so he is my number 1. I probably would have had Balogun as my number 1 before the 2 games there. I promise you I would have. I just wouldn't have maybe had like such a big gap between Balogun and Pepe, because I just think those 2 games, even when he comes off the bench against South Korea, we're going to see that was a snapshot of the job that player is going to have at the World Cup for the US, and he just seems to be so clearly suited for that role over anyone else. So it's Balogun number 1. Pepe number 2, and then I've gone Haji Wright number 3 just because of like a bit of versatility. Has started the season really well. I like his physical attributes. He does tend to contribute in some way for the US. Number 4, this is where maybe get a little bit bold. I've gone for Big Pat as my number 4. Very, very limited, but we had this discussion over the summer. Always gives you something. Like even in games where he has frustrating moments, he contributes in some way. And that's what puts him ahead of, even if Josh Sargent's a better soccer player and will probably score more goals in the championship than Agyemang will. Certainly if Agyemang is injured, as he is right now. For the US, I prefer Agyemang. I've gone Sargent number 5.
Graham, the smile you saw from me, and maybe from Joe, I can't speak for him, is like, you're like, I've rolled the dice here. He's my number 4. Agyemang's my number 3 right
Same.
now. Yeah, like so. There you go. That is entirely based on Pochettino seeming to like him and giving him the opportunities, but I think it's also that no one else has really taken the opportunities that they've been given. So I have it not at all concerning this ranking. Balogun, Pepe, Ajamang, Brian White, and then Damian Downs, and then
almost.
Josh Sargent. Yeah.
I'm not mad at it. For me, it's actually not that Pochettino likes Ajman. Like I said, I did this sort of how I would arrange it. Easy for me to say. My goodness. I'm just done with Josh Sargent. Like this, I'm done. Like the moment where he's standing, pointing at people to do his job in the press against South Korea, like broke me. It did. I just don't. I've long been a believer in his talent. I'm just done. Like, the talent is still in there somewhere. He doesn't look engaged. He doesn't look effective. He's not been effective for the U.S. And I've blamed a lot of that on the players around Sargent because they do shoulder a lot of that blame. The U.S.'s players do not do a good job of feeding the nine, whether that nine is Balogun, Pepe, Ajman, Sargent, whoever it is. Mm-hmm. But the sheer lack of effort from Josh Sargent across multiple windows now, I'm through. So Sargent moved to number 5. I couldn't bring myself to put him below Damian Downs, but in principle, I'm right there with you. I've got Balogun, then Pepe. I will say, I don't think this is me talking out of both ends of my mouth. I don't think the gap is giant between Balogun and Pepe, right? I mean, I think Balogun's a good player. I don't want to get totally carried away. I think I said earlier he can be a useful contributor for the U.S. in the attack. He's not a superstar. Like, he is, and Graham, you talked about this the other day. Like, he's not a top 20 striker in the world. He's not become that player after it felt like he could, maybe after his real breakout in Liga. But he's good, and I think he's the best striker. But Pepe is number 2, and I don't know that there's a big gap there. Then there's a big old gap, and I've got Ajman for Graham reasons, as Graham's laid out many times, then Brian White, and then Sargent sitting in his punishment corner, number 5.
There we go. All right, that's the depth chart then. Joe, are we feeling, has this exercise changed your view on anything? Are we feeling good? Are we feeling better?
No, I don't think so. I'm feeling good because this is fun, and I like doing this kind of show. I still think there are clear issue areas for the U.S. I mean, ending with the striker spot, I suppose, makes me feel a bit better because Balogun's healthy, Pepe's coming back and starting to get minutes, and that's better than that spot's looked in a long time. But really, you look down, and our question about central midfield is who on earth is Poch going to call? Like, what does he think? I think we know what we think. What does he think there, and how is that going to change things? Center back and goalkeeper are still big old concerns for me. So I don't imagine that's going to change between now and the World Cup, but hey, if listing names every month helps us feel better, then let's list names every month, you know?
There you go. All right, there we go. Thank you very much indeed, listener, for joining us on this one. Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much for your services. You're definitely top 4 on the depth chart for TSS for me.
Thank you, my friend. I do feel a little bit better about this team, just because I think looking at it, when you start off with like goalkeeper, bit of a mix bag, we're not really sure. We feel like it's Freese, and then center backs, as Joe already outlined. But even there, it's like we know one, and we maybe think we know another one. Like, it is a more fleshed out roster, I think, and depth chart than I assumed it was. So I feel slightly more confident, if not still a bit concerned.
That's good.
Yeah.
Graham Ruffin, thank you very much indeed for your services here.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
And thank you very much again, Joe Lowry.
Hey, thanks, Ryan.
Listener, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, come and have a chat in our Discord, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. Join us there. But for now, we'll be back on the feed very soon. Bye!